I'm Dr. Gena Ross, and I'm running for U.S. Senate for the state of Missouri. I'm good trouble because people are my first priority. I will stay true to all people as I stay true to myself. I'm unbossed, unbought, and unbiased, paving the way for change. Please follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or go to my website, rossforussenate.com. We're better together, building a better tomorrow beginning today. Business as usual is no longer acceptable, and feel free to make a contribution. No dollar amount is too small. Thank you very much.
Dare to be you, dare to be me, and dare to be different and unique. I'm gonna be the best me I can be by letting His glory shine through. I am beautiful, I am blessed, but not just what you see in the flesh. I'm free from people, free from myself. There's a liberty in Christ.
Well, hello. Hey, everybody. Welcome. And welcome to all of those voters, for the Missouri primary that's going to be coming up on August the 2nd. Thanks for joining the Ross for U.S. Senate 2022 campaign as we present Democracy Matters. Now, this is a candid conversation with Dr. Gena Ross and Superintendent Prince E.W. Bryant II. Welcome, guys. Hey.
Hello.
How is everybody today?
Hello. Thank you so
Mm,
very much for the invitation. It's such a joy to be here with candidate Ross, and certainly she has our full support, and we're certainly godly proud of her offering herself to serve in the life of our country, in the life of her community, and so we're here to have the candid conversation.
all
Uh,
right.
we
Yeah.
best promote and help her realize this dream of service.
Amen. Well, come on. Where am I? I'm always in church. It's Jesus in the morning, Jesus in the noonday, and Jesus when the sun go down. Blessings to you, Dr. Anthony Clark. Thanks for your shout out. And that is a supporter of Dr. Ross as well. He's just a great guy on fire for the Lord too. Now, we're here and we're going to be talking about democracy. And why it matters. Hmm? Why it matters. Come on, jump in, y'all. Doc, you want to get us started? Because I can go.
I'll leave it to the guests. Go ahead, Superintendent.
All
Yeah,
right.
I think democracy matters. I think that democracy matters. I think representation matters. I think as we are all celebrating the confirmation of KBJ Judge Jackson to the U.S. Supreme Court, she becomes the third African American ever to serve on the highest court in the land. And just here recently, we've had the first ever African American vice president to ever serve in the history of our country. And these two persons just happen to be African American women. But it's noteworthy that one is third ever, one is first ever, and both are first ever black women. And so this is the year of the black woman. This is the season for this kind of, I think it's been coined colloquially as black girl magic. And this is the season for that. So we're excited about that. There have been less than 15 African Americans ever elected to the U.S. Senate. Less than 15. And so this is no small event to have a black woman running to serve in the upper chamber of the legislature is phenomenal, and we need to have the conversation. We need to have a conversation around democracy. It cannot be democracy if there is no representation. And I'm very concerned about the direction of our nation. I'm very concerned in issues, not just religious freedoms, uh, that's tied to our ability to express uh, by right of Constitution our God and our religion, um, and not just connected to the LGBT agenda and advancement. Um, but I'm concerned about issues like economic disenfranchisement, economic
Mhm.
equality. I'm
Mhm.
concerned that the haves are getting more and the have-nots are getting less. There's a chasm between these two realities. The poor are getting poor. I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about education.
Mhm.
That there is a fundamental difference in the education that one child is receiving in Random Town, USA, versus the education that another child, primarily a minority, poverty children, the gaps are widening. Crime in our neighborhoods. Uh, just recently, one of our premier pastors in the Church of God in Christ headlines there in Chicago the Freedom Temple Church of God in Christ. Easily a top 15, top 20 facility in the life of our church. His brother was gunned down this week in a senseless violence. Uh, and so crime is plaguing our community. I'm concerned with the decriminalization of marijuana while
Mhm.
there's still black and brown men and women serving crimes for
Mhm.
marijuana. So there's a lot of issues at play, and I think when you talk about democracy, we know it textbook and denotatively that democracy is government for people by people. Uh, but what does that look like in application? And what does democracy? It looks like representation. It looks
Mhm.
like uh, people that look like me should represent me.
All right. We have a big shout out from Mother Gloria Ross. She is
That's my
watching.
mom.
Evangelist Gloria Ross. I tell you, a woman of God,
Is
fireball
she
for
related to our
Jesus.
candidate?
I believe so. I
That's
believe
my
so.
mom.
Yeah. Yes. Thanks for supporting. Jamie Johnson. Jamie, we spoke with her last a couple of weeks ago, and she gave a wonderful presentation. She says, "Good evening, Dr. Ross, Superintendent Ross. Let's see, that would be Superintendent
Brian.
Bryant and Ms. Moles. Great topic tonight, and it's even better because." Sister Jamie, I know that you jump in, you have a lot to say. You are also one that has a voice for the people in the communities that you support and that you engage in. And we love you. We love to
Oh
hear what you
yes,
have to
I
say.
remember she offered herself for the school board. We have a lot
Hmm.
of civic-minded and civic conscientious personalities
Hmm.
emerging in the life of the church. I think that's a
Hmm.
wonderful thing.
Most definitely.
I believe so too. And that you said something that was very, I mean, it's a no-brainer and thought, easily understood if people would just accept it. But it says you said that there's no democracy without representation. No democracy without representation. And, that right there is really all about what we're dealing with, and that the lack of representation of African American women in particular. They've had other European American senators that have been a part of the U.S. Senate in Washington, D.C., but no, there's only been three. Well, only two, and I'm already giving you I'm giving you your kudos. You're headed there, my sis. But you've had the one, and then of course Kamala Harris, but she's vice president now, and then there's no one else, right? So,
Right.
the fact that where has the representation been for the community, the African American community? the African American female in particular that does have to deal with what you're talking about, the incarceration of loved ones unjustly, the education system that has not uh, been a support to the children in the minority communities and the poor communities. I think that that's something that people need to understand too, that there is an African American issue, but there's also a rural issue, a poorer rural issue where technology and opportunities may not always be available to those in the rural community. And here in the Missouri, that's a big deal. You know, internet access in the rural communities. You're doing the best you can if you're trying to get an education and get your education and do an online and you're in a rural community, you might have to go drive in somewhere to find a Wi-Fi hotspot just to be able to log in and continue your education or get your education and college level online training. And those students who were in the rural communities too, who did not have internet access, uh, what happened to them when it came to being victims of COVID and having to stay home? Schools
Yeah,
are closed.
that's one of the reasons why we're here. I think that Dr. Ross, as the junior senator of Missouri, could offer a lot of infrastructure that would create the necessary uh, optics and optic lines and fiber optic lines and the satellites, etc., to bring the 21st century into rural Missouri,
Hmm.
uh, uh, helping to uh, divert funds. I know Missouri is a huge agricultural industry, but this is 2022. And
Hmm.
so some of those monies that's earmarked for agriculture for Missouri has to be repurposed and rebudgeted for technology gaps and technology deserts that exist in Missouri. And so that's why it's important when you're choosing representation that you choose people that understand the needs of that state. Uh,
Hmm.
each senator is responsible for the entire state. Of course, you know there's two senators per state. Each senator represents the entire state. And you have to choose people that understands the state, that knows the state, and that can uh, articulate the issues. That's position one. You have
Hmm.
to be able to articulate the issues in such a way that you can garner relationships and resources to maneuver to solve and create have solutions for those problems. And
Hmm.
so representation matters. I think one of the strengths of the majority race in America is suppressing representation so that they can maintain the stranglehold on the resources. Uh, when you look at things like the Electoral College, these are
Okay.
stopgap measures. These are loopholes. These are cheat codes to allow the majority race to maintain power. And so, though the country is diversifying, uh, I think in the next census, I think that the scientists are projecting that white people will be in the minority.
Hmm.
That's the real conversation around uh, border control and immigration. These are, it's not about the border. It's not about immigration. It's about how does the majority race maintain their white fingerprints on this country. And if we continue to allow Hispanics, Mexicans, and Caribbeans to come into the country, you're diluting their majority strength. So, if, for example, Biden, he's a Democrat, but politics is not red and blue.
That's right.
That's
That's
right.
very true.
It's white and black. And Biden has excommunicated or deported more Haitian refugees than since he's been in office than Trump
Mhm,
did his entire 4 years.
Hmm. Hmm.
mhm,
And yet he is creating space for some 700,000 refugees
In
from
Ukraine,
I almost said Yugoslavia, but it's
the
uh,
Ukraine.
Where Ukraine? Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Hmm.
From Ukraine. The only
Ukraine.
difference is skin
Mhm.
pigmentation.
It really is. It
Yeah.
really
They
is.
want to keep America white,
Hmm.
and they keep us misrepresented, underrepresented, and then conversely, democracy is not just about representation. Democracy is about participation.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Definitely
If you
participation.
don't have the participation of the people, democracy doesn't work. And we can look at any numbers, we can look at any models, graphs. They're going to show you that only 10 to 15% of Americans vote.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
As that demographic darkens in skin pigmentation, the percentages go down even further.
Well, they do. We have a big shout out from Sister Linnell, and she says, "Great evening, life changers." All right, great evening to you too, Sister Linnell.
So
Thank
then,
you.
Superintendent Prince Bryant, some people have their own definition of democracy. Democracy means different things to different people. So, how would you define democracy where other people can understand what it should be like?
Yeah, I think that, and I'll say the three things: democracy is representation,
Mhm.
democracy is participation, and then democracy is emancipation. So, um, and so the idea of democracy is the idea of involvement. That if you're not going to be involved, then you are not participating in the democracy that's available.
Hmm.
And so, the democracy is designed for the people to run the government.
Mhm.
Uh, and so then, if it's only 15 or 20% of the people running the government, that's not democracy.
No, it's
That's
not.
the elite class that's controlling and governing the other 80%. And that's not the idea of democracy.
Hmm.
Uh, and I think the other thing that I,
We do have a question here. Jamie asks, since we are underrepresented, how do we increase participation in the political process in our communities?
a fantastic question, Miss Jamie Johnson. I think all of us are on the front lines. I am a uh, elected officer for the Democratic Party. I'm on the executive committee for the Harris County Democratic Party. I'm a election presiding judge. I'm a precinct chairman. Uh, Civic involvement, civic engagement begins in your community.
Mhm.
Um, I tell people this all the time. The further the election is on the ballot, the closer it is to your front door. I think we're all enthusiastic and excited about presidential elections, and to no disrespect, senatorial elections. But the true political impact on everyday lives happens at that city, county level.
Mhm.
Uh, and so I think the first thing, Ms. James, what I would say is we have to have information. I think one scripture says our people perish for the lack of knowledge. Uh,
Right.
we have to inform and educate and indoctrinate.
I want to jump in here.
Eh,
I
eh,
think it starts
Go.
a little closer than just in the community. I believe it starts really at home. I do. I think that as adults and parents and grandparents, to educate yourself and then to educate and include your children.
Yeah,
Okay.
the Bible
So
says train up a child,
train them up in the way they should go.
and
See,
so voter education, the value of voting, the value of civic engagement, civic participation. You have to teach that to your 5-year-old child,
yeah,
Right. That's right.
your 9-year-old child.
yeah.
you can't train up an adult. If you
Or
wait to go to
teenagers, they're already
18,
geeked
19,
out on the weeds because it's legal, and they're going to argue with you. They're already geeked out on the different things that they do, which is socially acceptable, when it comes to dating. They're already involved in that by the time they get to be teenagers or even in high school or whatever. So, yes, catch them young so that they can be excited about the democratic process in our great republic of the
well,
United States of
and
America.
let me just say, introduce this idea of the first voice. The first voice, the
Mm,
first voice, and we can do the psychological research. The first time the human brain hears something, it accepts it as truth. The second time it hears it, if it's in contradiction, it will defend it. So the first voice, the human brain accepts it as truth. The second voice has to prove it's true. And so, and the reason why I say this is because oftentimes we outsource political narratives and community narratives to teachers, and the
mhm.
teachers
Yeah,
are indoctrinating our children. And then
Right.
by the time you speak, you they've already embraced the first voice, which was that teacher, and now you have to defend what you're trying to say to your child
as the parent, even
as
as the parent. Yeah.
and you'll see parents arguing with their children because the first voice was from the teacher.
Teacher said,
Mhm.
My teacher said,
Mhm.
but that's
Mhm.
a logical. It's called imprinting. And so parents, we have to be that first voice on all matters.
Mhm.
So
yeah,
whether
most definitely.
birds and the bees talk, whether it's who Jesus is and religion and spirituality, what we believe, whether it's social constructs. Um, I remember my baby brother, he was my baby brother at the time, but he was in elementary, my middle brother. And the teacher told him we were voting for George Bush. He's from Texas, and we're voting for George Bush. And he came home and said, "We're voting for George Bush." My name is wrong, son. We're not voting for no George Bush. And teacher, we're voting for George Bush. And he has been, I'm not going to call him a Republican, but he has been pro-Republican the rest of his life
Mhm. Mhm.
because of the influence of that teacher's voice.
All
And
right.
just to
Jamie
your point,
and Linnell, they say they are right there with you. They say they love that democracy is representation, emancipation, and participation. Yes. And Terrence Lee Sr. says, right.
Hey.
Terrence Lee Sr. also has a question here. So, what do you do when your parties have so far away or so far away from your views? So, if your party
wow,
thinks
great question.
way on the other side of what you think, Doc, I'm once he gets through with this, I want to hear from you because
I'm
we should have.
soaking it in. I'm listening. This is my teachable
Okay. No, I'm
moment.
just saying because this right here is something that we run on. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I think it's important to be able to identify the role of government in our communities and in our world. The government, elected leaders, elected politicians are not designed to legislate morality.
Hmm.
So the church, the preacher, the pastor, the apostle, and I could go through the entire fivefold ministry. We are the representation of God. We are responsible for setting the morality of the land.
That's right.
And anytime you see prophets in the Bible, the role of the prophet in the Bible was not prophecy. The role of the prophet in the text was around uh, pointing his finger at kings and heads of nations, demanding levels of morality and holiness.
Hmm.
So whether it
Okay.
was King Nebuchadnezzar and the three Hebrew boys, whether it was Isaiah and King Uzziah, whether it was Elijah and King Ahab, the role of the prophet is to speak truth to the nations, speak truth to the leader of nations. It's not the leader of nations' job to govern according to the
Morality.
Bible.
Mhm.
That's the
Mhm.
role of the prophet,
Mhm.
to maintain a level of holiness and righteousness in the land. And so we don't look to political leaders to legislate morality in the world. No, that's our job.
Mhm.
We choose political leaders to help in the areas where the church does not have a voice, and that's in economic circles, that's in educational circles. Those are the spaces that we say, hey, government, this is where we need you to take the lead. And so
Mhm.
when we're choosing leaders, elected representations, we're not, as believers, we're not outsourcing our responsibility to lead the world in righteousness and advance the
Mhm.
kingdom of God. We don't outsource that to politics. That's our responsibility.
Right.
And so, but what we do hold them accountable for is their views on gun control, their views on uh, uh, education,
Mhm.
fairness and equity and equality, their views on social constructs, or as around. I think there's one graph I saw that for every $1 a white man earns, Asian man earns I think $1.10. A black man earns like 87 cents. The white woman earns about 75 cents. The black woman earns about 65 cents. For every $1 that a white man earns,
Mhm.
the black woman earns 65 cents. And so those are the things that we're looking for our elected representations to tackle. And so, no, the world will never have our views on morality and righteousness. We don't expect that.
Mhm.
We expect them to operate in the legislative process around
Mhm.
equity and
Mhm.
equality.
Well, even still now, I'm gonna go here. I had a yeah, yeah, back in the day when I was getting my career going and I was super excited and business minded and I was passing out cards and everything, business cards. And someone from another country asked me why would I expect someone who doesn't look like me to speak up for me? Mm,
Yeah, I think we're talking about that.
yeah.
Mhm.
So the representation part is super important, to what's going on, and we have not had that. So if you're looking at the demographic and then the economics of the African American woman and how she's not making as much as even the European American woman, that's because I would say, and I would guess strongly that it's because of the lack of representation that when you have European American males predominantly trying to make a decision for me, who's doesn't even look like his wife, I got way too many anyway, I mean, the fact that I don't even look like his wife or his sister or his mother, then I would expect for him to vote and give me opportunity that's going to be equal to his wife or his mother, or even himself.
Well,
That
maybe
to me, we live in a society that to me, the issue, yes, is representation. But then we also look to each other to say, okay, put me in this position. If I'm going to be the scapegoat, that we preached on that yesterday, if I'm going to be the scapegoat, to say, okay, I'm going to stick my neck out here and I'm going to go speak for us. Okay. And then I can't get my own to vote for me or support me or give me the $10 or whatever. They rather give it to a different candidate or to a company, make down, get something to eat rather than give it to me so that I can at least try to get to a point to where I can speak for all people,
Well, one
being.
thing that I know from this is that if people can't control you, then they're not going to give. They want to see what you're going to do.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
I, as myself, I only can be me, and I'm not going to let no one control me or tell me what I can do when
mhm,
I know how to represent the best way I
mhm,
know how. Just like when I ran for Congress, I was told that if I didn't delete my YouTube channel with our church videos, that the major donors weren't going to give. And I said,
Well,
well, just don't give then, because I'm not going to delete my videos. I'm not going to denounce
and
who I
here I
am or what
come.
I believe
Here I
in
come.
because
You don't have
you
to
want to
delete your
control me. That's just
videos.
not going to happen.
You're right. I'm
I
here I
believe what I
come.
believe. You believe what you believe all
And
day long, but
there,
you're not going to shut my mouth up. If
that's
I
right.
say God is the head of my life, that's exactly what I mean. I'm not going to let no one silence me.
So those of us, and we're going back to Terrence's question here as far as the views. What do we do when your parties are so far away from the views? Well, here's a person here, Dr. Gena, who has the same views or close, right? So now I would suggest that we support the candidate, right? Support the candidate and make sure we put them in a position to where they can do their job to speak for all people. This candidate can speak for people on the level of being female, single, working professional, living in a rural area. This candidate can speak for all people, and then too being the African American female. See, so here is the opportunity, I would say, Brother Terrence and family, that's it. Let's support candidates that will come in, because that's what they do. European Americans and males or whatever, they're going to make sure they're going to back that candidate up, pack him up. What's his name? The other senator here, Holly, already has his 14 million.
Okay, so let's talk about support. And I think that my friend Jamie Johnson talked about how do we maximize participation. And so I think a part of the problem is there's a lot of illiteracy in the African American community. And when I say illiteracy, financial illiteracy, political illiteracy, in the African American community, we think that voting, if I give you my vote, I've done you a favor. But that's not really how the political ecosystem works.
Yeah.
The political ecosystem is governed by the dollar. And so I ran for city council here in Houston, and I got major donations from companies and corporations. And I was trying to get my people, just like Dr. Ross is, to vote for me. And they said, oh, yeah, I got you. Well, what people don't understand is if a candidate wins an office and some entity, whether it's the NAACP or whether it's the LGBT or whether it's the NRA, if that entity donates $50,000 to that candidate, that empowers that candidate to buy signs, flyers,
yes,
do commercials,
Right.
and hire staff, and hire databases so they can do the text
database
and the
is huge.
robocalls. Then when that candidate gets in office, they're not beholden to the people who voted for them. They're beholden to the people who financially supported them. And so the real reason why the African American community is not able to capitalize on our voting prowess is because we don't know how to leverage resources to our candidates. And so when someone gets in office, yeah, we voted for them, but we didn't give them a dime. We didn't give them a nickel. And so now that they're in office, Barack Obama, everybody loved Barack Obama until he got in office. But it wasn't.
True.
Was rejoicing. And Big Mama then was cooking pots of greens and we got us a black president. And then when he got in office, he wasn't doing nothing for black people. Everybody was confused. How can you be a black president and not be pushing black issues, black initiatives? Well, it wasn't the black dollar that got him in office. It was the gay dollar that got him in office. And when the gay dollar paid him, then when he got in office, his agenda shifted to the LGBT agenda because he had to reward the people who funded his campaign. And so I'm not saying that Dr. Ross is a sellout. What I am trying to communicate is that if we want a leader, and this goes for the Missouri Senate race, and goes for Senate races across the country, and all races across the country, if we want leaders that are able to withstand big business and big tobacco and NRA, then we as citizens, we have to give that money. You got to do more than just go in that booth and vote. You got to say, here's $100 and put it on a auto pay, and every month you send in $100, and you, and then when you have campaigns that's funded by the people, then you empower that representative to serve the people and not special interests.
That's
and
it.
So
Amen.
I say that yes, we're supporting Dr. Gena Ross, but we have to do it not just with a vote in Missouri. We have to also do it with our resources so that she can have a campaign staff and a campaign presentation that's comparable to her opponents.
All right. Now, we have some shout outs. Sister Linnell, parents should be the first voice on all topics. She agrees. Sister Jamie, she says, come on, Superintendent Bryant, teach us. Brother Terrence Lee Sr., there's a question here. Why does the church support a party that supports uh, supports values that does not support the church values,
A
like
great,
same-sex
great
marriage?
question. And this is a reiteration of something that was asked earlier. Let's be clear. Jesus talked more about poverty and the disenfranchised more than he talked about murder. Jesus talked more about the downtrodden and the poor in heart and the poor in spirit. He talked more about those who were social outcasted and those who were being neglected and rejected by their governments. That was the primary message of Christ. Widows, orphans, these marginalized communities that were not getting resources to have a sustainable lifestyle. That's what the crux of the ministry of Christ. And so as a church, we have to be careful that we're not emotionalized by and sensationalized by hot topic buttons.
Very true.
Here's the truth. There's no elected official that has anything to do with abortion. Abortions are determined by judges at the federal level and at the Supreme Court level. You can't vote for those people. So this idea that I'm voting for politicians that are against abortion, they have no voice in whether abortion is legal or illegal in America. It's a stunt. It's designed to confuse the electorate. And so you're passionate about abortion. And so you're voting for people based on their abortion stance, but the people you just put in office, they have nothing to do with whether abortion is going to be legal or illegal.
That's why the judges that are elected or that are confirmed are important, whether they are for or against. And then really it's back to, can we really legislate morality? Okay. I
just want to make this clear that there's no elected official that determines gay rights.
Okay.
That's determined by the courts.
In the interpretation of the laws that are set.
And so the only thing that I'm trying to communicate to someone who is passionate about not voting for a Democratic person because they could be for the LGBT, or a Democratic person that's for pro-choice, that senator, Dr. Ross, that city council member, that governor has no role in determining gay right laws or abortion laws. I just think that's something that's not communicated well to the electorate. And so we're voting emotionally, but we're not voting intellectually and intelligently. Just because you vote for someone that feels a certain kind of way, they have no power in office to execute that.
Well, the bills come down too. You
Well, and
know.
I could run on any
Mhm,
ticket
mhm,
because my values are the same regardless.
mhm,
It's
mhm,
people representation for all people.
mhm,
But
mhm.
Equality.
again, and I know this may be a difficult pill to swallow, but I just want to reinforce it. I wish I could type it on the screen. That no governor has anything to do with abortion.
No, it's
The
but the
governor, that's
bills
not
that are
the role of the governor.
passed, let's just know, because there's a life at conception bill that was drawn up by those that have been voted in, like the senators or the congressmen.
Yeah,
They
right. They
put
right.
that bill in saying, okay, when does life start? When does it start? So once you get there, then they're saying the likelihood that a representative would actually come up with legislation that would be for or against a particular subject. So it's usually that Democrats are those that vote in favor of pro-abortion, in favor of same-sex marriage, LGBTQ rights, all of that. Okay, and that they would write legislation or vote in favor of legislation that
So
would be
so let's go to
passed.
civic class for a moment.
Hmm.
So a legislature in
Hmm.
any state can pass any law.
They
That,
can't, the whole legislate on the vote based on what the state does. So,
but
but there's a
right,
bill that's
but
introduced.
it's the judge
Hmm.
is but okay. So so they pass a law.
Hmm.
Then that law has to be challenged against the Constitution,
Hmm. Yes.
and then it is ruled on in court whether it is constitutional or
Hmm.
non-constitutional.
That's true. Okay.
And so the Supreme Court has held Roe versus Wade as a constitutional right for women to have an abortion. Now that's what the
Hmm.
Supreme Court says.
Hmm.
Now any legislature can pass any law,
Hmm.
but when it gets to the Supreme Court,
Hmm.
it's going to be overturned or thrown out as unconstitutional.
Okay, and that to have that level of understanding and how the laws work, and then the concerns of people who usually vote or who usually introduce bills based on a certain Democrat or Republican stance, whether you're conservative or liberal or whatever the case is, just to kind of get a clearer understanding of that, so that yes, people, I'm not afraid to talk about any subject,
Absolutely.
so that we can definitely get it out and have people understand, how does this work? So is this a legitimate concern? You know, and I think that what Dr. Ross, being that's my candidate, and I know that she is one that is for all people, in that there are other solutions uh, to the you don't want to discriminate against anyone. That's the number one when it comes to LGBTQ. That discrimination, you want to treat all human beings fairly, right? You don't want to discriminate based on that. And then two, other laws or opportunities for people to maybe improve the right for adoption, right? The other alternatives to abortion or whatever, to have a voice to speak, to provide alternatives
Yeah,
to
but
that type.
and here's a failure of communication inside the black church,
Hmm.
because we have emotionalized and compartmentalized issues that are that have created buzzwords and galvanized votes, but you're really voting against yourself. And again,
Right.
if we vote for Dr. Ross, even
Hmm.
if she's a Democrat, and she gets
Right.
to the Senate, she will there'll be no abortion legislation that she can participate in.
Hmm.
And I think this is critical for comprehension.
Okay.
And so you have senators running on abortion. I'm for abortion. I'm against abortion. That will never be an issue that they have to deal with as a U.S. senator or U.S. congressman. You have governors and city council members running on abortion.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing that a city council member or
Does.
mayor
Mm-hmm.
or governor will ever deal with. And so when we're talking about democracy, and we're talking about representation, and we're talking about participation, it requires a certain level of comprehension so that you can operate with a certain knowledge base. And so when you look at the economic profile, again, when we look at the ministry of Christ was centered on economic equity. Do the research, read the scriptures. He talks more about the economic impoverished than in any other subject in his ministry career.
Yeah, we're to actually preach the gospel to the poor. I mean, that's
you're helping me.
there. It is.
You're helping me.
I got you. I got you, Doc.
The
You
difference
know,
between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, 80% of those votes for the Republican Party are going to be to widen the economic gap between our community and theirs. It's going to be to create less opportunities for success, educational, economic, entrepreneurial, from our demographic from theirs. And so you can continue to vote against abortion, but you're not understanding the larger role of government in the life of our communities. And so as a preacher, as a former candidate, as an executive committee member of a major national party, I vote for the party that's going to have the most positive impact on the members that I pastor and in the communities where I live. And that is the Democratic Party.
okay, that's the Democratic Party. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and take a few more comments here. We have Bishop Robert Williams. He says Dr. Gena Ross is a good woman. I believe. You second the motion. All right now. Thank you, Bishop Robert Williams. God bless you. And then Sister Jamie, again, she says, I still love my president, Barack Obama.
Me too, Dr. Johnson. Me too. That was just
All right.
So, Superintendent Bryant, here's a question that some other pastors might have. How would you say we could move forward to protect the right of the freedom of religion? You know, because we might come to a time where we can't use our Bibles like Bishop Stevens was preaching about yesterday and things of that nature. They try to shut us down. They try to silence us. They'll take things away from us if we say God, you know, our 501c3 and everything like that. What do you think about that? Someone might need some enlightenment.
Yeah, that's a very excellent question. I think that, and I advocate for democracy, not a political party. I think very few people are actually Republican or Democrat. Most of us are somewhere in the middle. We like what the Republicans are doing, like somewhere with the Democrats, and I think
That's
most
right.
in that space, you know. So I just want to be clear about that. I think, but I think as relates to religious freedoms, again, that's a level of information and research that has to be done on candidates. Most candidates win, you know, I hate to say this, on popularity and name recognition. But the truth is, you need to know people's history. That's one of the things that I did like about the Senate confirmation hearings. That even though the Republicans disproportionately targeted 4% of her cases around that subject matter, it still was an opportunity to look at a person's record to determine how they would serve. And I think that's really a lesson for all of us, that we would take the time to look at people's record, see how they're going to serve. Of course, and to put a little commercial here, Dr. Ross has a record of service, and that's why we're here supporting her. But more specific in particular around religious freedoms, Um, we have to operate in constitutionality. A lot of the things that the government does is actually taking away freedoms of the church. For example, 501c3. 501c3 is an agreement between you and the government that we will give you money and give you resources as long as you don't get in our business.
Mm-hmm.
So we paying you to shut up. And so people just fill out these 501c3s and they get this government money coming in and these grants coming in, not realizing that that's a contract with the government to be quiet, which is the opposite role of the church. The church role is
Cry loud.
Right.
cry loud and spare not. I talked about the role of the prophet in the beginning of the telecast. That the role of the prophet is to pronounce judgment on unholy and unrighteous kings and leaders. And so there's a lot of traps that muzzle and stifle this church actual assignment in the earth. When you look at churches like the Catholics, Catholic churches are on sovereign land. That's why you used to watch those old Western movies. The person running to the church, the police couldn't come in there because that's not
Their territory.
that's sovereign land. That they are the freedom of religion is being free of any governmental restrictions, and so most of our black preachers and black churches need to take a page out of the Catholic book. We should not be doing 501c3s. We should not be doing nonprofit statuses. All of these are contracts with the government to stifle our voices. We should be creating sovereign domains around our local churches that this is not even American soil. When you step on this land,
It's holy ground.
this is God's property.
That's right.
And this is self-governed and this is self-contained. And so there's a lot of religious, there's really need to be a deep dive from heads of denominations to really take a real look at what does religious freedom look like in 2022. And the purest answer is complete separation of church and state.
Someone might not understand that. So can you elaborate?
Yeah, so the separation of church and state is this kind of institutional pillar for religious freedom, that the church will have no influence. That the state would have no influence on the church and how one expresses their relationship with God and carries out their relationship with God. And then vice versa, that the church would not have any role in trying to influence the state. And so a lot of people want to think that America is a Christian nation. But the essence of being the separation of church and state means that the church is over here and the state is over here. There is a separation, and then the two are not to intermingle and intertwine. And so the state is supposed to have no influence on our religious practice. And but most of us sell that for the dollar. I hope
and I can definitely understand where you're coming from in that, and I think that even the education of folks when it comes to donations, they're not going to donate to a facility institution that's not 501c3, so say for a tax write-off, right? So that at the end of the year, if you do donate, then you can take that and then claim it on your taxes that was part of a donation. Now, just as an FYI, guys, that's not working these past few years. They don't care what you donated. They still want their money, okay? They still want their money. So it used to save me back in the day. I used to get, I'm like, ooh, them times. Yes, it used to save me from having to pay so much, but now it doesn't. It doesn't even matter.
Well, you're just too blessed. Still does bring charitable donations and in-kind gifts still bring down your taxable
Some,
income.
yeah, some
The
maybe.
margins do change based on administration and IRS
Mm-hmm.
code, but
Mm-hmm.
it does bring down your taxable income. But once you get to 6 figures and 7 figures like you, Dr. Ann, it's not going to make a lot of difference. But a run me my
Y'all
state,
better still
I
call
can
me.
get
I still
my
need some
tax.
customers and clients to get to where that brother's talking about now. Y'all call me. Y'all just, hey, I'm gonna put my number, my website in this chat. No. But but the truth, and that is why people, they do advertise. They want people to say, okay, well, here we have even the government is monitoring what it is that we've done with these I guess really, I think there's some reporting that happens there, but not
Well,
to the extent to where.
to your point about giving to political campaign. I remember I was working at the post office,
Mhm.
and there was this Caucasian gentleman,
Mhm.
and he was poor. He had poor hygiene. He wore the
Mhm.
same clothes every
Mhm.
day. He
Mhm.
was kind of like a nomad type guy.
Mhm.
Um, very little people skills. Just kind of person that that you really didn't deal with. He just kind of a loner
Mhm.
in the postal system. And every year, this guy, I'm telling my age now, but he was given $10,000 to Bill Clinton's presidential campaign.
Mhm.
He was giving $15,000 to
Mhm.
President Bill Clinton's
Mhm.
campaign, and he looked. I mean, you wouldn't have thought he had a jar or
Mhm.
pot or window. Like he didn't look like he had any means. Of course, he did because he's at the post office.
Mhm.
Right.
But and as I begin to think about that through the years, there's something that's being communicated to the majority race that's not being communicated to the minority races. And they understand the value of politics, uh, the election cycles. They understand donating to those election cycles, and we don't have that consciousness. Now we're buying Gucci and Louis Vuittons and red bottoms. This guy wasn't wearing nothing. He was
Mhm.
wearing the same clothes every day,
Mhm.
but he was giving 5 figures every year to political campaigns. And
Mhm.
so that's not about. So when black people say they can't afford to give to a campaign, it's not about affordability. It's about
Mhm.
priority.
Mhm.
We don't prioritize getting people that look like us and believe like us. We don't prioritize that with our resources.
Mhm.
And it hasn't been taught to us. Again, talking
Mhm.
about financial literacy. Most of we see the majority race is putting their children as authorized users on credit cards. By the time they 17, they got an 800 credit score and ain't never paid,
Mhm.
ain't did nothing. We putting our light bills in our children's name and won't even pay that on time. It's about financial literacy,
Mhm.
and so
Yeah.
literacy.
Financial literacy, I will agree, but I'm gonna have to speak for that single sis. I mean, she might have to hustle here because she's the first one, last one hired, first one fired. She has to prove and make sure that why should we hire you? She first one to go, then they're not gonna pay her what that European American or even the male or female makes. So yeah, I mean, I believe she's concerned, but sometimes it's just about the hustle, getting out here and doing what you have to do. Now, I'm not making excuses. I believe that the mindset needs to come up. I do. I believe that
Well,
the
I'm
mindset needs to
gonna
come
give you.
up.
If you do this, you'll never be broke another day in your life.
Mhm.
It's called an 80-10-10 rule.
Mhm.
I know y'all familiar with that, but just for
Yeah.
the
Go
audience,
ahead. Go ahead and tell us about it.
live on 80%, tithe 10%,
Mhm.
save 10%.
Mhm.
Pay God 10%, pay yourself 10%, live on 80. If you
Mhm.
live on 80% of your income,
Yeah.
you'll never be broke. When you talk about financial literacy,
Mhm.
some of our poverty is self-imposed.
Mm-hmm.
I
because
agree.
we're trying to live beyond our means.
Beyond the means.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Your rent or your mortgage should only be a 30% of your
Mm-hmm.
income.
That's
Mm-hmm.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so I don't care how much you make. You got 30% of that is supposed to go to housing.
Mm-hmm.
So you can only so now if you move that to 50%, you're already over budget.
Mm-hmm.
The definition of bankruptcy is when more goes out than what comes in.
Comes in.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
All
so
right.
it doesn't matter. You still eating out every day. That's fine, but you're already bankrupt. You're
Mm-hmm.
already. It may not have zeros in the account, but you're already bankrupt. And
Mm-hmm.
so again, we're talking about just levels of financial risk. So when you begin to live beyond your means, you begin to stretch beyond your means. If your housing is 50% of your income or 65% of your income, you in the house.
Mhm. Or you're in the apartment. You
You
just
in the
got $12 an hour job, and you have the 3 kids because Pookie done did what he had to do, and then did what he did, and he's gone. Or
it
divorce
shouldn't cost you.
situation.
It shouldn't. It
Divorce
shouldn't be the 3 kids
situation.
that taught you that, but that's another conversation. Go ahead.
Well, that is another conversation, but this is the reality of life. She didn't go get the abortion. She kept hers,
Amen.
right? And
Amen.
and here she is. She's struggling to get through, and I know we all make excuses, but I do want to be that voice to say that, Jesus said that the poor you'll have with you always. That does not mean that we should not show compassion. And yes, we do educate, but then we also want to be that voice to understand why are we here, redlining situations, the idea of not being valued even in the media, as far as the look and who is valuable in this world, in this country, you know what I'm saying? So it's a lot to it, my brother. I got that
And
80
right,
20
that's why we're
20,
talking about education.
80 10 10.
Yeah, I think that's why we're talking about education.
Mm-hmm.
Because for example, transportation should be no more than 10 to 12% of your income.
Well, that
Period.
gas, if she's got to get to it, she making the 12 or
Yeah, but
15 in that hoopty.
yeah, but you go get the Mercedes. That's
I don't know if they got it on the lot down there.
and
I'm not really trying to be
you talk.
funny. If they let me
Hold on.
have it with that interest rate,
Hold on.
I know I need to get to work. I got to
Hey,
go get
thank you, God.
mine, huh?
Yeah, but
And
all
okay,
it may
I
be
get it.
lawful.
It's
It may
not
be
always,
lawful,
brother Prince. It's
but it's not expedient.
superintendent.
It may be lawful. You may can legally purchase
You
it,
might can do it. Yeah.
but it's not
Well,
expedient.
they
They're
even
gonna give
have
you a
that. They
24% interest
Yeah.
rate.
Yeah. They
They're gonna
already
give
have that sewn up. They know how many times they're going to sell that car in the community, in the black community. That car
absolutely.
gets sold at least 5 times.
Well,
So,
but
they
this is
don't
what
care nothing
this is
about it.
what
And
the
because
majority
they
rate.
know that people can't afford, they know they're going to repossess houses. They don't care that you come out here, even though it's red line. They know that you're going to lose your job. And so, so you're not going to be able to make that mortgage. So you got one mortgage to miss and you out of there. They know that.
So
So
then it's my job to help find resources to keep you in your house.
come on, help find resources, set laws, and set
I
up
would rather
opportunities for
you
people to do
create
better.
financial literacy programs and financial workshops
Most definitely.
because that Range
Hmm.
Rover that the majority race they buy from the showroom floor. It's got a warranty on it. They pay no maintenance on it, free oil changes, and they drive that car to 65, 70,000 miles. And then Pookie come get it. Ray come get it at 70,000 miles. It done lost all its value, and now all of the big mechanical issues now come due.
Hmm.
So he got to pay the big down payment, the high interest rate, and he got to pay $5,000 or $10,000 because the transmission is going out. $5,000 or $10,000 because the AC done went out. So he
Hmm.
got all the big ticket repair bills, high interest rate, and he put a big down payment on it. Hey, this and now and we ain't even talking about insurance yet.
Hmm.
You're over budget.
Hmm.
You can't afford that car. But here's the problem, and I'm way off task now, but I'm having a good time.
It's
Here's the problem.
okay.
The white girl, when the white boy pulls up in a Honda Civic, she says, Ooh, hey, hey, Tommy, how you doing, Tommy? Because she wants to ride in a Honda Civic. But if Leroy pull up in a Honda Civic, LaShonda gonna say, "You got a Honda Civic?" we don't have no respect for the black man that pull up in a Toyota Sonata. No, what is this you got? he ain't got no swag. He broke.
Okay, well, that's to me self hate. That's misdirected value. That he's not valuable because he's driving a Honda Civic. Education. We get it. But
All
there's
right.
a whole lot of things going on when it comes to
Well,
why
listen,
we're where
we're voting
we
for Gena
are is the
Ross,
point.
and we're donating to Gena Ross because she's gonna solve all of this.
You better believe it. You better believe it. Here we
Most
go.
definitely.
Uh, Thank you so much for your comments, Terrence Lee, Senior. They just have really participated. We appreciate them. Jamie Johnson, vote for the party that will have the most positive impact on this community you live, or the community where you live and work and serve. Thank you for that. And I
Excellent,
think
excellent.
our last comment from Minister Jamie there. I used to vote on name recognition, but started researching all candidates 5 years ago. It makes a
And
difference.
what I've been saying to people is vote for the person that will make you a priority, not an option or an afterthought.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
She sounded like a politician. Now go ahead.
Oh no.
Now, Dr. Ross is the first one to tell you she's not a politician.
Mm-mm.
She's
And
not
they
a
know that. They even say I'm too churchy, and I don't care. I don't mind.
politician.
I do not mind. I
Mhm.
am who I am.
Most definitely. What a good time. I do definitely appreciate you, Superintendent Bryant the second. You have definitely blessed us and educated us, and
Most
kudos
definitely.
to your positions and what you do as the leader and participation in the civil duties as an American. Showing us that. By example and everything. So that's just definitely a plus. And kudos to your new ministry too. We're looking forward to it
Thank you.
growing as well. We're looking forward to
The
the river
River Church of God in Christ.
growing, so that you can continue to minister to the spirit man, to the spirit family, the family that the Lord watches over and everything. All right, here we go. We're just grateful and thank you for joining. But hold on, we're just going to run a couple of ads here. Don't forget to go to Ross for ussenate.com. Ross for ussenate.com. Now, there is a big donate button there that will definitely be a blessing. When you click that button, you are making that decision to say that this is my candidate. I'm going to support them the best I can. And one thing about Dr. Ross, she does mention no donation is too small. We get it. We understand. I get it, sis. I get it, bro. Go ahead and pay that child support. Do what you need to do. And then take your McDonald's money and go ahead and that one time and be a blessing to the candidate that is going to be a voice for you, for the community. So don't forget to do that. There's other great resources on the website as well. There's voter registration links that will take you there. I can't say it enough. Register to vote now. Do it now. And make sure that you get that in so that you can vote during that primary. And we are an open state, so we don't have to worry about whether we're Republican or Democrat voting in that primary. If in the past you voted Republican, but you know that this is the candidate for you, Dr. Gena Ross, who is on the Democratic ticket, go ahead and walk up to that table and tell them you need a Democratic ballot there to vote during the primary, August 2nd. Take the day off if you have to. Take the
Number two
day
on the
off.
ballot. I
She is
was three, but now I'm number two.
Let
she's
me say this too, Dr. Ann, while you do running your commercial. Dr. Ross is qualified. She's more qualified and more competent than Amy Coleman, who was just put on the Supreme Court at the end of Trump's tenure.
Mm.
She's competent. She's capable. Sometimes we have too high of a standard for each other,
Mm.
and we have no expectations for the others. And so I just want to lift that up. She's qualified. She could do the job, and she will make us all proud.
All right. All
Thank you,
right. Thank you.
Superintendent.
Thank
Don't y'all
you.
laugh at my website. I make it myself by choice.
Hey,
That's
you
just my
know,
own personal way to stay connected.
it's a wonderful website. It does have lots of information,
I
and it
try to
is a
add
way.
resources. I try to look out for people.
It's great.
That's
It's a
just in
great
me.
website. Thank you so much. And, we're just going to go ahead and run a couple of outros here and just hold on. And we'll be check us out next week or whenever we go live here. But definitely get ready. Get ready to do that vote. Okay, here we go.
Don't say a whole lot because I'm observing and I'm watching and I listen. So I will listen to you and hear your concerns because you matter to me. All right? This is a rally, so let's make some noise. We're better together, building a better tomorrow beginning today. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And to my candidates, my male candidates, I feel so special being the only woman. But congratulations to all my male brothers running. We're better together, and let's fight. Let's win. Thank you.
That's that COVID voice, that COVID long holler effect.
I used to be a cheerleader.